to help Blanca, please?
Absolutely will do, ma'am. Give me 1 minute.
We're live.
Yes.
I don't have any there. Puerto Rico, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good to see you. I just really got here. I don't know if I can hear you.
I do
Thank
believe
you.
we're live, everyone.
Thank you.
We're live now, Sonia?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Is that correct, Mr. Reynoso?
So here, I need to go for my, is this one here?
And then,
This one? No. This one? And I'm gonna call you back later on, maybe you can help me. How can I storage information, for example, the word list? Sometimes I don't have the time to read the first one, maybe I keep it at the time, and I read it little by little, or I'm driving in the highway, my husband, and I want to go with it. So maybe you can help me, how can I save it and then I read it?
Ready?
Hello, hello.
all right, Mr. Payan, you can go.
Okay, let's get ready to go.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021. It is currently 3:07. I'd like to call this meeting of the Canutillo Independent School District Board of Directors meeting call to order. At this moment, I'd like to read a statement about the suspended provisions of the Open Meetings Act due to coronavirus. On March 16, 2020, Governor Greg Abbott granted a request from Attorney General Ken Paxton to temporarily suspend a limited number of open meeting laws to extent necessary to allow telephonic and video conference meetings and to avoid congregate settings and physical locations in response to the coronavirus disaster. Several of the suspended laws may offer flexibility for telephone or video conference meetings conducted by Texas school boards. The order is effective immediately and will remain in effect until terminated by the governor or until March 13th disaster declaration is lifted or expires. The final thing is, if you have any questions about the suspension order, you may contact the Office of the Attorney General at 888-672-6787 or via email at toma@oag.texas.gov. If you have any questions about teleconference or video conference capabilities offered by the Texas Department of Information Resources, you may visit dir.texas.gov or call 512-475-4700. At this time, I'd like to call for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Hernandez, if you'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the
You're
flag
muted.
Flag of the United States
States
of
of
America.
America.
and
and
to the
To the
republic
republic
for
for
which
which
it
it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
Ms. Earls, if you'll lead us in the Texas Pledge.
Yes, sir. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this moment, I'd like to ask if we could all take a moment just to a moment of silence for all the victims of the Atlanta and the Boulder, Colorado tragedies. If
Definitely.
you'll join me for a minute of prayer, please bear with me. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Sonia, if you'll please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mr. Coronado.
He called
Mr.
in, Sonia. He's not going to be on today.
Yes, sir. Mr. Hernandez.
Here.
Mrs. Mendoza.
You're muted.
Here.
Mr. Payan.
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Present.
Mrs. Searles.
Here.
And Mrs. Trout.
Present.
Thank you. Item,
Go ahead, Sonia.
yes, sir. Item 1E, Trustical Ethical Guidelines.
Dr. Galaviz.
Yes, sir. Board, thank you very much. Again, thank you, Mr. Bayan and board for acknowledging and giving prayers and thoughts to
I told Sonia the
The
first
Atlanta
item. Check the item.
and Boulder, Colorado. Board, our first ethical standard was trustworthiness and stewardship, where we talked about involving community in our decision-making, making sure that we're interpreting and accurately informing community aspirations. The second ethical guideline was honor and conduct, where we talked about arriving at conclusions after discussing all options, basically having an open mind, and then respecting the opinion of the majority of the board in order to create that synergy as a team. Today,
Dr. Galaviz, I don't need to interrupt you. I'm sorry, sir. But we have heard the mission.
just going by the,
We need to read the mission. Someone
I
is.
You
can't
have a
hear
lot of
Mrs.
background
Trout.
noise there.
I think, can Ms.
So we need
Mendoza
to read
mute?
the vision and mission. We haven't read it yet, as it's custom from every board meeting. I don't know, we're going to skip it this time, Dr. Galaviz?
no, Mr. Payan, do you want to do the mission and vision before the ethical guidelines?
No, let's do the ethical guidelines first, and then we'll do the vision statements.
Okay. So today, we're going to be going back into trustworthiness and stewardship 5.1. 5.1. Mr. Hernandez, could you read 5.1, please?
Thank you so much.
5.1, trustworthiness and stewardship. I will be accountable to the public by representing district policies, programs, priorities, and progress accurately.
Thank you. Any board member like to chime in on what that means to them?
I'll take it. I believe that in order to be accountable, we have to know what is in our district policies, our programs, our priorities, and the progress accurately. I think that if the better that we're informed, the more accurate information we're going to be able to rely or relay to the public.
Thank you, Ms. Patsy. Ms. Patsy, why is that important to actually know what you're relaying?
Because if it's very hard, Superintendent Galaviz, when there's a lot of misinformation out there. And when somebody asks you a direct question, knowing that you're on the board, you better know your staff. In other words, it better be the correct information.
Exactly, especially with a lot of social media out there.
Yes, sir.
So there's a lot of, could be. And then that's the way the board can advocate for the district, by knowing what policies, programs, priorities, and where we're moving forward. Anyone else, Ms. Searles?
Well, Dr. Galavis, to me, I think the key word out of this is representing, that we are the representatives to our public. And so that Patsy, A+ on that we need to know all of it, but even if you know it, you must model it as well. And I think that's really important, that perception is everything. And if we do know what our policies, programs, priorities are, and the progress we're making on them, and Dr. Galavis and many other board members who know me, I would reflect on policy BQ, legal and local, that goes back to that if we will continue to get our updates on BQ, our policy, it answers every one of these things, our policies, our programs, our priorities, and the progress. So I think that it's not only board, but it's also staff, and it's a communication, a working together, so that staff, Dr. Galavis and company, they all report to us accurately, and then we take that information, we make sure we understand it and digest it, and then we can be the representatives to our community to let them know how things are going. So I thank you for asking me, Dr. Galavis. Please, let's have a BQ local update soon.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Trout, Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes, Dr. Galavis. I will be accountable to the public by representing the district policies, programs, priorities, and progress. Definitely, I need to be accountable. And I'm going to talk for the Genesis as I. And each one of us could be I, accountable to the public, because the public, they definitely, them are the one who elect us. So definitely it really fits today, this paragraph. We need to be accountable. And also to the district policies, all the rules that we have, we need to follow. That's a reason why they were written here, so we could go and abide by them with the policies, with the programs, and the priorities that we have. So like I said, I could only speak for myself. The Genesis is I, and yes, definitely by representing the school district, following the guidelines, policies, and programs, and our priorities.
So in regards to, you have your local and your legal policies, and locally, the legal comes down from the legislator, but your local policies are set by the board.
Yes.
And that's for accountability. And so it's important for us to, whether looking at best practices or best policies around and being able to stay on top of it consistently, it's important for us as a board to see what new policies might be coming about, or what policies in other areas or school districts have been effective to create the change in regards to having an impact on the child as a whole, which is the students we serve. So, thank you.
So to be accountable, definitely, and to the public and the ones who's going to get the results or consequences are students. So that's why definitely I need to represent at the best of the interests for the community, for the students, and abide, like Mr. Rodriguez says, by policies. Yes, I know that the local, them are set up by the school board, but also the legal, we need to abide that and we need to follow that. And the best programs for the kids, and of course our priority, our students. Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
You're on mute, Mr. Payan.
You're muted, Dr. Galavis. I don't know.
No, would you like to add?
Myself?
Yes, sir.
No, and it's one of the things that, ever since I started this appointment by the public, and one thing, there's so many things that you have to deal with as far as these issues go, but my take is I always, if I have a question or if somebody asks me anything, I would rather go to the superintendent or to the personnel director or legal to find out what is the correct information to pass on to the public. I think that's my take is I'd rather be correct from somebody that's legally and responsible for some of these policies and get the correct information to the public.
Mr. Hernandez, would you like to finish us off or?
Yeah, so to kind of piggyback off what Mr. Payan was saying, I think it's important for us to give the correct information to the public so that way we can hear their input. Because without their input, we're not representing the community right in the way we want to move the district. And that can only come through clear, transparent modes of dialogue between us and the community. And I think that comes from us first learning, hey, this is the correct information, holding ourselves accountable so that we can get the information to the public as best we can, so that way we can get their input and their opinions on how we should move the district forward.
With that said, board, I will end the trustee ethical guidelines segment. Thank you.
Okay. Sonia, next item.
Yes, sir. Item 1F, CISD vision and mission statements.
Patsy, would you do the vision statement?
Yes, sir, be happy to. Vision, Canutillo ISD is a premier district preparing tomorrow's best today with innovative, future-focused learning opportunities for every student.
Thank you. Ms. Trout, would you do the mission statement?
Yes, sir. Mission. Our mission is to create rigorous, student-centered classrooms which develop future-ready students to compete in a global economy and thrive in a multicultural world.
Thank you. Sonia, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Open forum. Any person wishing to address the board during the period reserved for public comment at a board meeting must sign up to be heard in accordance with District Policy BED Local. Number 1, each participant will be limited to 3 minutes to make comments to the board. Number 2, the board is not permitted to discuss or act upon any issues that are not posted on the agenda for tonight's meeting. Board Vice President, we do have one speaker signed up in person, and his name is Jesus S. Ramos.
Okay. I didn't hear his name. What is it?
Mr. Ramos, Jesus S. Ramos.
Good enough. Mr. Ramos, welcome. Go ahead. You've got the
Good
floor.
evening, board. It's been a while. Mr. Chair, members of the board, community of Canutillo. I stand before the board today to express my concern and discomfort on agenda item 3A, discussion of possible action regarding conversion of board of trustees election procedure from at-large trustee elections to single-member district elections. This agenda item is very concerning and alarming to the community of Canutillo. I very firmly believe that the community of Canutillo deserves to have a voice, a vote on who stands on this very own board, and that shall include every member of it. While this district procedure may be useful to districts like El Paso ISD, with serving over 58,000 students, meaning our districts only serves about 10.54% of what EPISD serves, Canutillo serving about 6,000 students. This is not a viable option for Canutillo. I've heard many claims, including allowing more community members to have the opportunity to run for the board. This concern is having board members who have sat in their position for over 27 years. This is concerning and goes directly tied with what the Texas Senate is doing in its redistricting process. And as I mentioned in their hearing, we simply can't have politicians choosing their voters. This is about moving forward as a community, as a district, providing excellence in education that our children deserve. And we do this by allowing every member of this community to have a vote on who stands on this board. Since this is an agenda item, I have questions for the members of this board. My first question would be, with what purpose was legal counsel Blanco asked to provide this information about the procedure change of board election? And why does the board move to change its electoral process? I yield back. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Bayan, you're on mute, I believe, sir.
Anybody else want to speak up?
No, sir, we don't have anyone in person, and I don't believe there was anything submitted through our website.
Okay. Well, let's go on to the next item then.
Yes, sir. Item 3, board business. 3A, discussion possible action regarding conversion of Board of Trustee election procedure from at-large trustee elections to single-member district elections.
With that, I'd like to see the board president, Mr. Coronado, has requested of the board to see if we could table this item. He'd like to be a part of the discussion, and he's not available today. With that, I'd like to ask the board's consent
Yes,
to
definitely.
table this item.
I'm agreed.
I
What-
would,
Can you take a
Mr.
roll,
Chair, I'd like
Sonia, on
to
this
say
issue?
something, please.
I'd
Mr. Payan, may I speak to it,
I'd like to
please?
see, like I said, Lori, Mr. Coronado wants to be a part of this discussion, so he asked that this item be tabled. And if we engage in any discussion, he's not going to be available for any discussion. So I'd like to see if we can get the board's consent to table this item until Mr. Coronado is available.
I just have a question. Who put this on the agenda?
I would rather wait until we have Mr. Coronado back on the
Okay.
board.
I understand.
Okay?
Thank you.
With that, Sonia, will you take a roll? I make a motion that we table this item.
Second. Is a motion?
Well,
It's a
before you go, Mr. Payan, my recommendation was for the board to have a workshop on redistricting, and that way we may want to solicit community input, come up with different ideas. And then we'll have Mr. Blanco can be there, but kind of have a separate item, just as a special board meeting, but it's up
Okay.
to the board.
If we will take up my motion to table this item first, and then we'll discuss, we'll put
Yes, sir.
that workshop on a next board meeting, special board meeting. Sonia, call the roll.
Yes, sir, there was a first and a second. Mr. Coronado, excuse me, Mr. Hernandez,
Yes.
Mrs. Mendoza,
Yes.
Mr. Payan,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Earls,
Yes.
and Mrs. Trout.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Next item, Sonia?
Yes, so that would be item number 4, consent agenda. Administration recommends approval as presented.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Sonia, take a roll.
Yes, sir. Mr. Hernandez,
Yes.
Mrs. Mendoza,
Yes.
Mr. Payan,
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Earls,
Yes.
and Mrs. Trout.
Yes.
Item passes. Number 5, adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
So we're not going to make the motion for the special board meeting, Mr. Vice President?
I think that's
Yeah.
something that's going to have to come on a board, special
Yeah,
board
we
meeting.
can't do that.
We
No,
can't
the-
discuss it.
The board meeting.
It's not part of the agenda.
Yeah, the board meeting will be scheduled by the board president for a special meeting.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Blanco. Appreciate that.
Time is
Mr. Payan?
3:29.
Yes,
I was
that's it.
just going to second your motion, sir.
Okay, motions made and seconded for adjournment. Sonia?
Yes, sir. Time is 3:29.
I make a motion to have a happy Easter.
Yay.
I second.
Yay!
With that, thank
you,
everybody.
board.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Goodbye,
bye-bye.
everyone.
I
Bye-bye.
really appreciate that.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy Passover.